Hello everybody, today I will read Capital Mysteries, Book 4, A Spy in the White House. Chapter 1. Who's listening? Come on down, George Washington. It's time to go outside, Katie said. The present cat, George, was sitting on top of the refrigerator. Will you get him down, Michelle? Casey asked. We have to practice for the wedding. Casey, Karen, and Michelle Lee were best friends. They live in Washington, D.C., but today they were in the White House. Casey's mom was going to marry the President of the United States next week. Casey would hold her mom's flower during the ceremony, and Michelle would be the ring bearer, with George's help. What's the practice? Michelle grumbled. Your mom says I do. Then the President says I do. Then it's over. Casey rolled her eyes. This is a White House wedding march, she said. Everything has to be perfect. The whole world will be watching on TV. Marshall raised his eyebrows. I'll be on TV? He asked. Casey nodded. We'll all be on TV, she said. Even George. That's why we have to practice making him walk down the aisle. Marshall grabbed George while Casey opened the door that led out of the president's private quarters. Arnold, the Marine guard on duty, saw to him. Afternoon, Casey, he said. Afternoon, Marshall. Hi, Arnold, the kid said. Arnold took off one white glove and stroked George under the chin. Then he sneezed. Achoo! Are you allergic to cats? Marshall asked. Arnold sniffed. No, I have a cold and a sore throat, he said with a hoarse voice. Casey noticed that Arnold's nose was red. His eyes looked watery and puffy. I hope you feel better for the wedding, Casey said. Thanks, Casey said. Thanks, Arnold says. I'll try. Casey and Michelle left Arnold and walked to the rose garden. Michelle sat George down, and Casey tied a green ribbon on his collar. Why does George need a silly green ribbon? Michelle asked. What's wrong with a piece of rope or something? The ribbon matches Mom's dress, my dress, and your vest. Casey reminded him the wedding is color-coded. Maybe I will get sick like Arnold, Marshall murmured. He looked at his hand. You know, my skin does look like a little green. Perfect. You fit right into the color scheme. Casey crowed. Let's get started. Casey pulled a wad of string from her pocket and made a long straight line on the lawn. This is where we have to walk, she said to Michelle. The wedding guests will be sitting in the chair on both sides. I know that, said Michelle, but someone had better plan it too, George. George was half under a bush investigating a line of ants. Get him out of there before his ribbon gets tangled, Casey said. Michelle took George out from under the bush and sat him down near the string. Okay, Casey began humming the wedding march. She took small steps over to where The president will be waiting. Now it's time for the rings. Casey called Michelle. Come on, George, let's walk, said Michelle as he bent to pick up Cat's ribbon. But George had a different idea. He boarded across the lawn and ribbon flying behind him. Hey, that's the wrong way! Michelle yelled. He and Casey chased George, who disappeared in some shrubbery. Michelle, Marsh, why did you let him run away? Casey asked. She peeked in the thorny bush covered in pink rose blossoms. Covered with pink rose blossom. I didn't let him do anything, Michelle said. I'm not an animal trainer, you know. I hope he doesn't take off during the wedding, Casey said. He'll have the wedding rings around his neck. That's why we're practicing, Michelle said. And so far it's a big flop. The kids searched under all the rose bushes. No George. They crawled on their hands and knees and peeked under the hedges. George stayed out of sight. They looked up in the tall trees that lined the fences surrounding the White House. They saw birds and squirrels, but no large fluffy cat with a green ribbon tied to his collar. 20 minutes later, they still hadn't found George. They searched most of the grounds around the White House. Should we check outside the fence? Michelle asked. Maybe he snuck under. I know, Casey said. She dug a bag of kitty candy out of her pocket and started to shaking it. Traffic whizzed by a Pennsylvania Avenue. Honk, brakes squealed, and a motorcycle rolled past. George will never hurt you. George will never hear you rattling that stuff, Michelle said. Just then George walked out of the hedges. Casey gave Michelle a look. Michelle ignored her and picked up George. Bad cat, he said. You could get smushed out there. Casey gave George a treat and put the bag in her pocket. That's weird. George smelled like mint. I think he's been in the herb garden, she told Michelle. Michelle rolled his eyes. You're just imagining the mystery, he teased. Casey checked her watch. Well, there's one thing I'm not imagining. We got to go. The press conference is starting. Can't we skip it? Michelle asked. Let's go to Rock Creek Park and look for bugs. We can go to the park anytime, Casey said. But how often does my mom marry the president? You really want to see those reporters, Michelle said. I can't help it, Casey said. Someday when I'm big, I am a big Washington reporter, maybe I'll interview you. She and Michelle hurried to the Oval Garden. When they burst through the door, they saw about 20 reporters waving their hands and a microphone toward the president. Casey's mom and president were sitting side by side on a long white sofa. Louis smiled at Casey and patted the seat next to hers. Casey sat down by her mom. George jumped out of Michelle's arm and hopped onto President George's lap. Casey felt embarrassed when everyone stared at her. Her mom took her hand and squeezed it. Masha watched from the back of the room. For the next 50 minutes, the president and Louis answered a lot of questions. They wanted to know how they met. Everyone wanted to know about the wedding and who would be invited. One female reporter asked the president where he and Louis are going on their honeymoon. We're keeping that information in the family, the president said, smiling as the cameras clicked by. Miss Corcoran, can you tell us about your wedding dress? The woman asked, what does it look like? Who designed it for you? Casey had her mother's pale green dress. Casey had seen her mother's pale green dress. It was hanging on a closet upstairs in the White House. Casey thought it was the most gorgeous dress in the world. She couldn't wait to see her mother wear it on her wedding day. That's going to be a surprise for the wedding, Louis said, but I can tell you this much, it's beautiful. The president sat George on the floor and stood up. I'm afraid that has to be the last question, he said. Louis and I have a lot of plans to make. Thank you all for coming. The reporter gathered their stuff and filed out of the room. Well, that wasn't so bad, was it? The president asked when all the press had gone. Why didn't you say where you were going on their honeymoon? Marshall asked. We don't want 1,000 reporters and helicopters buzzing around, the president said. He took Louis by the hand. Now, let's go find what for lunch. The next morning, Casey, her mom, and Marshall arrived at the White House to have breakfast with the president. They found him in his dining room staring at the newspaper. You're not going to believe this, the president said. He turned the paper so they could all see. Covering almost the whole front page, there was a picture of Iceland Paradise Hotel in Manila, Hawaii. Beneath the pictures were these words: President and bride to honeymoon in Hawaiian Island Hotel. Chapter 2. There's a spy in the White House. How did they find out? Casey asked. I wish I knew, the president said grimly. They even found out the hotel on Maui. He glanced at Louis, Casey, and Michelle. I don't suppose any of you accidentally let the cat out of bag? I certainly didn't, Louis said. I want our honeymoon to be private. I didn't either, said Casey. They all looked at Michelle. I know how to keep a secret, cried Michelle. Besides, I didn't know the name of hotel. Well, someone found out and they told Dora Darling, Louis said. Dora Darling wrote the Society column for the Star newspaper. Her picture was at the top of her column. I saw her at the press conference yesterday, Michelle told them. Yes, she was the reporter who asked about the honeymoon and my dress, Louis said. Maybe someone at the hotel blabbered to her, Michelle suggested. The president shook his head. The hotel people in Hawaii didn't know our real names. He said, Louis and I were registered the Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Well, I am going to get the bottom of this, Louis said. She picked up a telephone and called the newspaper. She asked to speak Dora Darling. A few seconds later, she hung up. her voicemail with display, Mrs. Darling is on assignment and not available. The president picked up a different telephone and asked Vice President Mary Kit Kane to come in. When she arrived, the president showed her the newspaper. How did the Darling find out? The vice president asked. That was a top secret information. None of us leaked it, the president said. Could it have been someone on my staff? I couldn't imagine that, Mary said. They knew you and Louis wanted your honeymoon but kept a secret. Secret or not, Dora Darling found out, Louis said, and she didn't hear from a little bird. No, but it could have been a little bug, Michelle said. Everyone looked at him. What do you mean, Michelle? The president asked. Michelle pointed at the flower vase on the table. Someone could have planted a bug, she whispered. Casey gasped. Do you think? She got up and walked around the room, peering into small spaces. It's not likely that anyone could have gotten a listening device in here, the president said. This room is very secure. Michelle may have a point. I have this place swept just to be sure. Mary Kit-Kane said. Meanwhile, will you two be choosing a different place for your honeymoon? Definitely, the president said. He looked across the table at Louis. How about shh? Louis whispered, grinning. The walls may have ears. We'll talk about it later. At last, Dora Darling didn't find out about your dress, Casey said to her mother. Louise smiled. It's the most beautiful dress in the world, she said. Michelle is a genius. During the night, the VBA checked the president's private residence for books. They found nothing. The next morning, a drawing of Louis' wedding dress took up almost all of Dora Darling's column in the newspaper. There was even a picture of Michelle, the man who had designed the dress. The headline over the picture read, "New First Lady's dress is grand, green, and gorgeous." Well, this is the end of this video, so bye-bye.